Well, good morning. There's quite a few things that I want to get done today. So far we have managed to do a whole lot of housework, so I have spared you that excitement. But I have plans to dig up my Mashua and my Oca, or my New Zealand yam. And the other thing I need to quickly nip down and do is the girls are just moving their rabbits out of the colony and putting them into a cage, just the two mums, because we've got a whole lot of boys down there that are waiting to go to new homes and we really don't want them breeding with the mother. The cage that we're putting them in just needs a water line hooked up and also I think a feeder hooked in, so I need to go and quickly do that first and then we'll get tucked into the garden. You may have noticed that we have changed our name. We have been known as Piwakawaka Valley, but we have found that that's really hard for a lot of people, 1 to remember and 2 to pronounce and 3 to spell. So we have actually changed our name on our YouTube channel and on Facebook to Fantail Valley Homestead. This camera is really heavy, it's hurting my arm. So Fantail and Piwakawaka both mean the same thing. One is the Maori name for the little fantail, which is a native bird here. So if you've noticed that it's a different name, it's still us, but we have swapped over to Fantail Valley. And so if you enter fantailvalleyhomestead.com, it should redirect to our website. So hopefully that'll be a lot easier for you all to remember. Now, I hope you don't mind, I've left your legs over at the door. They're a little large and cumbersome to be bringing in here. In here, this shelf here is where I keep all my animal bits and pieces. And hopefully in here I have the things, elasticator, that's not helpful, the things to set up a water line, and hopefully down here somewhere another feed container that we can hook up for these rabbits. Now in here I have got a whole lot of silicone hose, and I've kept it in a sealed container to stop the mice eating holes in them. And there we go, feed pan, door latch, water doofer wafers for hooking up the water line, needle nose pliers, wire clippers, and a pair of scissors for cutting the hose. So we'll take these down and get that sorted for these bunnies. Your camera battery died, so I've just nipped in to change it, and my son has very kindly mopped the front hallway, but now I have got really wet socks. Oh well, you know, can't look a gift horse in the mouth, I suppose. Now we're going to pop down and sort out these bunnies, and I think I'll just turn you off and carry you. I'll meet you there. Turns out it's a push door, not a pull door. Our baby bunnies have grown so much. Look at them. So cute. Right, now for this water line. Ah, look at that. I already hooked it up. Yes. I love it when I'm organized. So these bunnies do already have water. And I already put a latch on their door. That's very exciting. So all I need to do actually is give them a feed container. Now this is Rosie. And this is what happens when you forget to write things down. I can't remember if it was 3 Mondays ago or 2 Mondays ago that I bred her. So I've had to give her her nesting box just in case she's due any day now. But actually she might not be due for a whole nother week. So we're just going to have to wait and see. Right, I'm just going to quickly put together this feed container. All it takes is clipping some wire out the way and slotting it in. So that will just take me a minute. I'm not going to lie, I'm really stoked that I had already done that. That saves me a whole lot of time and a whole lot of fluffing around. And also once I got down here, I realised that I hadn't bought anything to clip the water line off with. So thankfully none of that was an issue and I didn't actually have to do it. So we're going to wander back up the hill and I'll put the rest of these things back in the shed, and then we'll go and I'm going to try and dig up this oca and see what's there. I really love oca, or New Zealand yam. We call it yam, but I know it's quite different to what Americans call yam. I really love it. It's part of the oxalis family, and so it's got sort of a lemony tang to it, but because it's also a tuber, it's also really sweet, and I love them roasted. They're one of my favourite things. Oh, the piggies want to say hi. We'll go and say hi to the pigs. So these piggies, we've given them a whole lot of straw in as bedding. We're waiting for some wood mulch to get delivered so that we can cover the ground to act as just a big absorption thing, I guess. These guys have worked out how to rub up against the waterer to release the water, so they're making a massive mud pile. So I'm not entirely sure what we're going to do about that. But for now, they just have a muddy puddle right next to their feeding trough. Also, making a feeding trough for those pigs was no mean feat. What you see there is actually type number 3 of the same bits of wood, but we've had to peg them, and then we've had to screw them to the pegs, and we've had to like extra reinforce it, because once you get 3 pigs standing on something trying to tip it out the way, things don't last very long. So hopefully that one, we did that on Saturday, and it's now currently Monday, so it's lasted more than the others have so far. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that variety lasts properly while they're in that pen. I have just noticed this little collection of wild nettles that are starting to grow here. Do you use nettles for anything? Do you have a favourite recipe for them? Because I kind of don't want them to go to waste. If you have a favourite way of using or cooking nettles, do you want to let me know about it in the comments below? Because I quite like to make use of those, but I'm not sure what to do with them. I was just walking along past my fig tree, and I've noticed it has dropped all its leaves in the last week, but has left behind all these figs, and I don't actually think that they're ripe. I suspect they're soft because of the frost. But let's open one up and have a look. Oh, it's really tough. Nope, that is definitely not ripe. That is very definitely not ripe. So I'm not 100% sure if I can even grow figs here. I've certainly tried, and so far I have yet to get any of them to ripen before the frost hits. So I'm not sure if our season's not long enough, or if the tree's not old enough yet, or if there's something else we can do. But it would be really nice, because it makes fruit, but they smell gross. They're certainly not ripe, they're certainly not sweet. And I have protected them this year. I've put this old gate that used to be in the goat area. The goats just busted it, and to be honest, it's quite rotten. But we've set it up to protect the tree because I have a dog that likes to eat unripe figs. So I might pull these off and feed them to the pigs, I think. I don't think they're going to ripen with the frost. I'm not 100% sure. If you have any ideas, please let me know. Alright, we'll get stuck in and dig up these yams and see what there is there. I've got my garden fork, and I don't have any gloves, so I'm probably going to get quite grubby fingers, but that's okay. The only problem with these is I have waited until the frost has killed off the tops, which is what you're meant to do, but now I'm not sure where the plants are. The Mashua at the end is quite obvious because it's still got planty bits on it. But the Oca, or the New Zealand yam, I can't seem to find anywhere. So we're just going to start digging and see what we can find. You can see this garden is a bit of a mess. A lot of it is grass, and then there is quite a bit of buttercup, also known as ranunculus, I think is the word. And obviously the leftovers of some corn and things as well. Oh, I've just realised I've got watering tape all the way along here, and I think I might have just stuck a fork through it. Just pull all those out the way. Well, I found one. These are some creamy coloured ones. They're not very large, but they're more than zero. The thing with growing these is that any tiny little one left in the ground will turn into a plant next year. In fact, any tiny piece of any of the thick roots will probably turn into a plant next year. But if you're growing them for eating, obviously you're better off planting the larger ones because you'll get a better harvest from them and better genetics. You want to be planting the bigger tubers to get the plants that make the bigger tubers. Now there are so many weeds in here, and I'm actually not going to really weed it. My plan out here is to actually put weed mat on all 5 of these gardens, because whilst I called them survival garden because they just had to survive, actually I think a lot of the plants would have done a whole lot better if they weren't competing so hard with weeds. So that is my plan for this year. Out here, this was the first year that this was actually garden, and there's a lot of grass and all sorts of things trying to grow through, as well as trying to grow my vegetables in it. And whilst I laid down cardboard and manure and compost and wood mulch, I think just because it was its first year as a garden, it had a lot of weed pressure, and there's a lot of long grass around it, so a lot of grass seed got blown in here. So I think just to save my sanity, I am going to try some weed mat gardening out here on these ones. Unfortunately, when I built the beds, I have built them, I think they're about 1.1 to 1.2 meters wide, because I didn't actually measure them, I just guessed. And you can't find weed mat that wide easily, so I've had to order some actually from the same company that we got our tunnel house from. They have some that is 1.2 meters, which is 4 foot. So these beds should have been like a meter wide, and I've made them sort of more than that. So luckily I've managed to find some, but I need to wait for it to get delivered. So it's on its way. And then for tucking these beds down for the winter, all I'm going to do is pretty much squash the weeds down and lay the weed mat down, and that will kill off the weeds. And then next spring, when I'm ready to plant, we'll come along with a little butane torch. Actually, I think mine's a propane one, and burn holes where I want the plants to go. So it will just smother out the weeds, and hopefully I'll get a better harvest from them next year. So we'll see how that goes. Right, I'm going to get on and get the rest of these oca out, and then I will show you what I'm planning on doing in the tunnel house with the propagation table that I have. Now, one of the main reasons I want to put weed mat down is to reduce competition so that the plants can grow bigger. You can see here this was quite a large plant. There's quite a lot on the top there, and you can see just how much more production it has underneath, and that's not even the ones that I haven't dug up that are stuck in the ground. So this is why I want to put the weed mat down, to keep the competition down for the plants, because if they can grow well, then we're going to get so much more harvest off of them. Now, we've had quite a bit of health related things happening in my family in the last year or so, and it has really made me very aware of how broken our food system is and just how much rubbish we eat. And it's made me really determined to try and grow as much organic, healthy produce for my family as we possibly can. And for us, we eat a really meat-heavy diet. I think we've been sold a lie about sugar and carbohydrates, and I think it's making us all very sick. So I personally, we don't eat a great deal of these sorts of things. They're a treat in our house. Because of the starchy nature of them. It's just made me all the more determined to try and sort out my own health. And my husband Matthew, he's currently working on the GAPS diet, trying to heal some gut things, and I'm really hopeful that that will help. But I really suspect that a lot of it has come from the rubbish that we've eaten over the years, and we followed a healthy diet. You know, the 6 healthy grains a day or whatever it was, and that's kind of put us in the position we're currently in. So Our focus is really to grow as much nutrient dense food as we possibly can, and we have been seriously thinking about some more ways that we can greatly increase the amount of meat production that we have on the farm as well, because I don't believe that the industrial model for raising meat is sustainable or healthy or helpful for anybody. Here in New Zealand, most of our meat is actually pasture raised. That's traditionally how our farmers do it. But more and more there are feedlots happening, especially for finishing beef on large production. They'll often put them into basically a CAFO sort of setup near the end and feed them large amounts of grain and soy. It's not happening everywhere, but it is happening in a few places already, and that is coming into our food system. And also at least one of our supermarkets, a lot of their beef is actually not even New Zealand beef, it's Australian beef, and Australia use the feedlots a lot more than we do. So we're looking at maybe getting some lambs in the springtime. We've had sheep here before, there were some bottle sheep, and we just had so much trouble trying to keep them alive. I think we had a bug in the soil that killed off a whole lot of them, so we will be vaccinating against that, and hopefully that will do what we need it to do, because that's one of the reasons why we lost quite a few goats this season as well. It was the same bacteria. It's a Clostridium. The humans get Clostridium as well, but a slightly different variant. And once it's in the soil, it's really hard to get rid of. So the best option, unfortunately, is to inoculate against it. So we're going to try lambs again, and also hopefully this year, hopefully our goats will actually survive. I honestly lost count how many baby goats we lost between a severe iodine deficiency, which took the vet ages to work out that that's what the problem was, but that's not their fault, it just is what it is. And also we had this Clostridium, so that's partly why it was so confusing with these goats dying, was some were dying from one with some symptoms and some were dying from the other with other symptoms, and so it just took us a long time to get to the bottom of that. We do raise our goats with the aim of being able to provide some meat, and we've got a milking goat as well, but last year it was just a bit of a bust, unfortunately. So it's kind of put us on the back foot. We were hoping to get 4 or 5 that we could be putting in the freezer, but unfortunately that's just what happened, and it's a little bit the realities of farming, and it's a little bit of a learning curve, and just getting to know your own property and your own land and what pests and diseases you're going to be dealing with. I've grown up with goats and we've never inoculated against this, we've never had problems with it, but it was different to here. We also didn't have any iodine problems with our previous lots of goats, so I don't know whether it's a little bit genetic, I'm not entirely sure, but hopefully we've got to the bottom of it now. So anyway, bit of a heavy story, but that's why we are doing what we're doing, and why our focus is on organic practices, and why we are raising the animals that we're raising. Right, I need to get off my chuff and start digging up these oca. Now these yams, also known as oca, they will also go green when they're exposed to the sun in the same way that potatoes do. So I have got a few that unfortunately are quite green, but the upside to it is that you can still use these as seed, so they will still grow. So I'm keeping them, I'm not throwing them away. I'll store them with the rest of them, but separately, if that makes sense, in together but separated, so I can use them as seed later, because they taste yuck when they're green, and also I believe it's a little toxic, so we won't be eating them. But some of them are quite a decent size. This this is sort of the size that you can buy in the store, so they're quite a good size. And these obviously came from some of the larger plants. Now to store these, I'm actually going to take some of the soil inside and put it in a bucket. You can store them in damp soil or damp sawdust, just in the same way that you'd store other root crops, like carrots or beets or any of those sorts of things, parsnip maybe. So I will bring out a bucket and grab some soil, because you want to keep them dark and slightly moist and cool, so they'll go into our laundry where it's nice and cool. Now the last thing along here to dig out is the Mashua, which is a cousin or a type of nasturtium, and I put together a video all about them, which I'll put up here somewhere for you. But they also form tubers very, very similar to the oca, so I'm going to dig those out, and I'm not actually going to grow those in this garden again. I'm going to plant them up into the food forest, because they actually really like to climb, and they really struggled here because there was nowhere for them to climb except for the fence right at the end over there. So I've never actually grown Mashua before, so I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to find, but we'll dig them up and see. You can see that the tops have all died off with the frost, but they've grown all the way along here and all the way up the fence at the side. Oh look, they're pulling out already. They're quite decent sized little tubers, and they look very, very similar to the oca. We'll keep those separate. I haven't actually eaten or cooked them before, but I understand they're quite similar to the yams, so we will give them a go, and I'll let you know what I think. Ugh, they've got a really gross texture on the vines. They're kind of almost sticky. Wowza, there is a lot of tubers here. Again, quite a few green ones, because they're growing right near the surface, and I will just keep those to plant in the food forest. We won't be eating the green ones. Oh my goodness, there's so many of these. These are so much more prolific than the oca are. Look at that one, it's huge. And also they make really pretty flowers that the bees really like. So for me it's a win-win of a plant, really. I think I've got probably as many tubers off this one plant here than I did off all of my yams combined. Can you see that? Hang on. Whoop! I've just turned that over and there's still a whole lot more on the ground. And a rock, apparently. Look at that, there's those, and that big pile there, and that's how many, the yellow and red ones are the yams that I dug up. So there's significantly more of the Mashua from one plant than I think I found about 6 plants of the yams. And there's another little Mashua plant over at the bottom of my fork over there somewhere, but it's not nearly as big as this one. I'm just sitting here editing together today's video, and I have realized that I have far too much stuff to put in one video, so I'm going to actually split it up and make it 2 videos. So you get one this time, and I'll put the next one out as a continuation of this particular video. I hope you've enjoyed the video today. If you have, hit the like button. Consider subscribing to our channel. We bring you videos twice a week on growing and preserving your own food and other homesteading bits and pieces. I'll see you in the next one.